My name is Albert, and this happened last year when I was 19. At the time, I worked part-time cleaning classrooms at a community college. Most of the cleaning crew worked in teams, but I was assigned to one of the smaller buildings by myself. The building only had 3 floors and was usually empty after 9 p.m. One night, I was vacuuming a hallway on the 2nd floor when I noticed a classroom door standing open. That wasn't unusual. Professors sometimes forget to close them. As I walked past, I glanced inside. Someone was sitting at a desk. I almost kept walking. Then I remembered something. The building was supposed to be empty. I stopped and looked again. The person was sitting in the very back row. Their head was lowered. At first I thought maybe it was a student studying late, but there were no lights on. The room was completely dark. I stood in the doorway for a few seconds. "Hello?" I called out. The person didn't move. I felt uneasy. Finally, I reached in and turned on the classroom lights. The room was empty. Every desk was vacant. I immediately stepped backward. I knew what I had seen. There had been someone sitting in that room. Trying to calm myself down, I continued working. About 20 minutes later, I finished the floor and headed downstairs. As I reached the lobby, my phone buzzed. It was a notification from the building's security app. Every cleaner had access in case of emergencies. The notification said, "2nd floor motion detected." I stared at it. I was the only person in the building. Slowly, I opened the camera feed. The hallway appeared on my screen, empty. Then movement. A classroom door slowly opened by itself. I felt my stomach tighten. The camera quality wasn't great, but I could see something standing inside the room, just beyond the doorway, watching the hallway, watching the camera. Then it stepped out. I couldn't breathe. It wasn't a person. At least, it didn't move like one. Its arms hung too low. Its head tilted unnaturally to one side. The figure crossed the hallway and disappeared into another classroom. I immediately grabbed my things and headed for the exit. As I reached the front doors, another notification appeared. Motion detected. Lobby. My blood ran cold. The lobby was where I was standing. I immediately grabbed my things and headed for the exit. As I reached the front doors, another notification appeared. Motion detected. I looked behind me. Nothing. Then I checked the timestamp. The motion had been detected 15 seconds earlier, meaning whatever triggered it had already been there. When someone asked why, he only said one thing: "Don't stay in Building C after midnight." I never worked there again. To this day, I still have the screenshots from that night. The strange thing is that every time I look at them, I notice something different. The figure always seems to be standing in a different classroom. My name is Ryan, and this happened when I was a freshman in college. Our campus was pretty large and surrounded by woods. Most students stayed in the dorms, but I rented a small apartment about 10 minutes away and usually walked home after my evening classes. One night, my sociology professor kept us late for a group presentation. By the time I left the building, it was already past 11 p.m. The campus looked completely different at night. The pathways were mostly empty, and the only sounds came from distant traffic and the occasional buzzing of streetlights. I put my backpack on and started the walk home. About halfway across campus, I noticed someone standing near the football field. At first, I didn't think much of it. College students were always out late. But after a few seconds, something felt strange. The person wasn't moving, not even a little. They were standing near the fence, facing directly toward the field. I kept walking. As I got closer, I could make out more details. It looked like a young woman, long dark hair, gray hoodie, jeans, completely motionless. I figured she was waiting for someone and continued past. Then I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around immediately. Nobody was there. The path stretched back toward the academic buildings. empty. I stood there for a moment before shaking my head and continuing. A few minutes later, I reached the student center. The building was closed, but the glass walls reflected the pathway behind me. That's when I saw her again. The woman from the football field. She was standing on the path, far behind me, just staring. I spun around. Nothing. The pathway was empty. My stomach tightened. I looked back into the reflection. Still there, standing perfectly still. I quickly looked away and started walking faster. At that point, I just wanted to get off campus. As I crossed the main quad, my phone buzzed. It was a campus safety alert. Normally, those alerts were about weather or parking issues. This one wasn't. The message read, "Students are advised to avoid the old athletic complex until further notice." That was strange. The football field I had just passed was part of the old athletic complex. I opened the email attached to the alert. The message explained that a maintenance worker had reported someone trespassing near the field. There was a blurry security image attached. I zoomed in. My heart nearly stopped. The image showed the football field from above. Standing near the fence was the woman. But there was something else. Another figure stood directly beside her. A man. Both were facing the camera. The problem was that when I passed them, I had only seen one person. I closed the image and shoved my phone back into my pocket. I was officially creeped out. At that point, I was only a few minutes from the campus exit. Then I heard the footsteps again, much closer this time. I turned around. Nobody. The quad was completely empty. Then my phone buzzed again. Another safety notification. This one wasn't an alert. It was a response to the image report. Apparently, several students had called campus security, claiming they had seen the same woman near the field. The attached statement said something that made my blood run cold. Review of security footage confirms no individuals were present in the area at the reported times. I stopped walking. No individuals. I had seen her. The maintenance worker had seen her. Multiple students had reported her. How could nobody have been there? Then I noticed something ahead of me. At the far end of the pathway, near the campus gate, a figure stood under a streetlight, gray hoodie, long dark hair, facing me. I froze. The gate was the only way out. For a few seconds, neither of us moved. Then the streetlight above her flickered, once, twice. And when it came back on, she was gone. I didn't wait around. I practically ran the rest of the way home. The next day, I asked one of the campus security officers about the alert. The moment I mentioned the woman, his expression changed. He asked where I had seen her. When I told him, he went quiet. Then he said something I'll never forget. "You're not the first student to report her." I asked who she was. The officer hesitated. Then he told me that years earlier, a student had disappeared near the athletic complex after leaving a late-night practice. Her body was never found. Campus officials never officially connected the reports to her. But according to the officer, students had been seeing the same woman for years, always alone, always watching, and always somewhere between the football field and the campus exit. I transferred schools 2 semesters later. I never saw her again, but sometimes, when I walk across a parking lot at night, I catch myself checking reflections in windows, just in case someone is standing behind me. My name is Ben, and this happened during my second year of college. At the time, I lived in one of the older dormitories on campus. The building was 6 stories tall and had a reputation for being strange. Nothing serious, just the usual college rumors. People claimed they heard footsteps in empty hallways or knocks on doors when nobody was there. I never believed any of it. Most of the stories came from freshmen trying to scare each other. One Friday night, my roommate went home for the weekend. I stayed behind because I had an exam on Monday. Around midnight, I left my room to get a drink from the vending machine on the first floor. The dorm was unusually quiet. Most students were either out partying or had gone home. As I waited for the elevator, I noticed something odd. The display above the doors showed the elevator moving. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The doors opened. Nobody was inside. I stepped in and pressed the button for the first floor. The doors closed. The elevator began moving. Then it stopped. The display showed floor 3. The doors opened. No one was there, just an empty hallway. I waited a few seconds before pressing the close button. The doors shut. The elevator continued downward. A few moments later, it stopped again. Floor 2. The doors opened. Again, nobody. Just another empty hallway. I was starting to get annoyed. I pressed the close button. Nothing happened. The doors stayed open. Then I heard something. Footsteps, slow footsteps, coming from somewhere down the hallway. I leaned forward and looked. The hallway lights were dim. At first, I didn't see anything. Then I noticed a person standing at the far end. They were completely still, too far away to make out any details. I hit the close button again. This time the doors shut immediately. The elevator continued down to the first floor. When I got my drink, I completely forgot about it. I assumed someone had been standing in the hallway, and the elevator sensors had detected movement. That was it. At least that's what I thought. The next night, it happened again, around the same time. The elevator stopped on floor 3. The doors opened. The hallway was empty. But this time, I immediately saw the person, standing at the far end, motionless, watching the elevator. My stomach tightened. I quickly pressed the close button. The doors closed. As they were shutting, I swear the figure moved. Not walking, not running, just suddenly closer than before. I told myself I imagined it. I had been studying all day and was exhausted. Still, I decided to take the stairs after that. A few days later, I mentioned it to one of the resident assistants. His reaction surprised me. Instead of laughing, he asked me a question. "What floor did you see them on?" I said floor 3. His expression changed immediately. Then he asked another question. "Were they standing at the end of the hallway?" I nodded. For a few seconds, he didn't say anything. Then he told me that students had been reporting the same thing for years. Always floor 3. Always late at night. Always someone standing at the end of the hallway. I laughed nervously and asked if it was some kind of prank. The RA didn't answer. He just said, "If the elevator opens on floor 3 after midnight, don't get out." That answer bothered me more than it should have. A week later, I was studying in my room when the fire alarm went off. Everyone had to evacuate. Students flooded into the stairwells. I joined the crowd and started heading down. When I reached the third-floor landing, the flow of people suddenly slowed. Everyone ahead of me had stopped. At first, I thought someone had fallen. Then I looked over the railing. The third-floor hallway was visible from the stairwell. And standing at the far end was the figure, perfectly still. Watching, I wasn't the only one who saw it. Several students were staring. Nobody said a word. Then the alarm suddenly stopped. The emergency lights shut off. And when the normal lights came back on, the figure was gone. Campus security later claimed the fire alarm had been caused by a system malfunction. Nobody mentioned the person in the hallway. At least not officially. The strangest part came a few months later. I was helping a friend move out of his room on the third floor. While packing, he pulled an old newspaper clipping from behind a dresser. Apparently it had been stuck there for years. The article was about a student who had disappeared from the dorm decades earlier. The photo attached to the article showed the student standing in a hallway that looked exactly like the third floor. I felt a chill run through me because I recognized the face immediately. It was the same person I had seen standing at the end of the hallway. I moved out of that dorm the following semester. To this day, I still avoid elevators when I'm alone, especially late at night, because every now and then, when the doors open, I find myself expecting to see someone waiting at the end of the hallway.